Welcome to the Human Impact Theory Podcast. I'm Jacqueline Way, founder of 365 Give, and your host. Thank you for joining me right here in my home, where we're going to explore the practices, the science, and stories that help us live a happier, more meaningful life. Today's episode is called The Hidden Truth About Unconditional Love No One Ever Told You. We are going to uncover why so many of us are misunderstood about love, why we can't find it and we go searching for it, and how no one else can actually bring love into your life. We've had it all backwards, and we'll explore why love isn't just an emotion, but an expression, a mirror of our lives. My special guest and dear friend is Dr. Stephen Post, one of the world's leading experts on compassion, care, generosity, and love. His new book, Pure Unlimited Love, reveals 7 powerful paths to a life of meeting, connection, and yes, unlimited love. It's all backed by research, history, religion, spirituality, but most of all, life itself. You will leave this episode understanding the many ways love shapes our lives you haven't even considered, and how you too can bring unlimited love to your life every day. So let's not wait another minute and let's get started. Stephen, welcome to the Human Impact Theory podcast. I'm so excited that you're here with us today, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. And Jacqueline, your excitement is absolutely contagious as always. So I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Well, Stephen, I am thrilled as well because boy, do we have some news to share with everyone. I have been following this process with you for, I think, about 2 years, maybe even 3 years now. And finally, on pre-order, we need a drum roll right now. Your latest book, Pure Unlimited Love, is just about to hit the shelves. Congratulations. I am so
Thank you.
excited for the world to read this book. It's going to be absolutely incredible what they're going to learn and how it's truly going to change lives in this world. So I'm going to get right into it, Stephen.
Yes.
And, there was something pretty remarkable about your book that grabbed me from the beginning because not many people can say this about any book in the world. But your foreword in the book is done by the Dalai Lama.
Yes.
How is that even possible for anybody on this planet? Can you please tell me? Because just being in his presence, from what I understand, is a life learning in itself. Tell
Yeah.
me about how, not even how you got that, but there's a relationship story in here. I just know it.
Well, I've never actually met him personally, but he's always been very generous and very supportive of my work.
Wow.
I think he's just enjoyed my writing over the years. And I also, well, we have a common friend in Victor Chan, who's from Vancouver.
Mhm.
And Victor's written some books with His Holiness. So I've always liked His Holiness. I think it's a great, great tradition, and he's getting quite old now.
He
But he
is.
came to a talk I was doing in Bangalore, India, at the Institute for Advanced Studies there, and I was talking about consciousness and deeply forgetful people, or if you will,
Mhm.
people with dementia. And and I was saying that, you really don't need to overemphasize linear reasoning, means ends rationality. They still have symbolic reasoning. They can still connect with a symbol that tells them something about who they are and what their life was. And so he just stood up, put his hand down on the table, and he said, yes, there's no reason to think lesser of somebody because their memory is somewhat impaired, then there's no reason, no justification for it. So I really like him, and we share a lot of common views.
Oh, well, I'm very excited for you for that, and that just knowing that you two come from a very similar, I don't want to, playing field's not the right word. I'm going to say energetic field, I think would be the perfect way to describe you both. You come from a very similar energetic field. And
Thank
Stephen,
you.
this book has changed titles. Not everybody knows that, but I happen to be one of the people that know that. Can you tell us
Yes.
what the title of this book started as?
Well, it's been through a few iterations. It was once entitled "The Most of It," and that was
The
a line
most of
from
it.
from Robert Frost. And I wanted to approach it more indirectly on the love theme.
Mm.
But then I decided with time that the best thing to do would be to just go straight forward. And then, of course, it was unlimited love, but then it became pure unlimited love because pure makes a difference. There's a lot
Well,
of
what's
impure.
okay, so let's talk about that for a minute then. Let's not even go one step further before we talk about anything else. There's a difference between pure love and pure unconditional love and just unconditional love?
Well, at least in the mind of the public.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, I mean, when I came here to Stony Brook, which was now, believe it or not, 16 years ago,
Yeah.
there was a cub reporter from the local paper, and she'd been digging around and looking at some of my media history and figured out a lot about me. And she even interviewed the dean of the medical school here, who's a nephrologist and the head of the department in preventive medicine, and said, "Do you know about this guy? This is the unlimited love guy." And they were very good. It was noble of them. They said, "Well, he can do what we want him to do, and we've done very well, helping clinicians and students create a culture of compassionate care, and even won a lot of awards for it." But that was an interesting moment because I went out to a pizza place, and it was raining like crazy. There was a lot of lightning, a lot of thunder, and in the foyer there was a little magazine stand. And the only magazine on the stand was the Three Village Herald, which none of your listeners have ever heard of, nor should they have. It's sort of the north shore of Long Island, from Nassau County out toward Orient Point and Montauk. And the only thing on the front page was it was a headline: "Unlimited love comes to Stony Brook." Now,
Yes.
now
I
this
want
is
that title. I love that.
and Stony Brook's a very hyper scientific university, and so amazingly, um, the next morning I called the president who had recruited me from Case Western, and I said, "Shirley, did you see the Three Village Herald?" And she said, "Yeah, I did see it." And I said, "Well, what did you think of it?" And she said, "Well, I guess it's okay. I got a lot of calls this morning." And I asked her, "Shirley, who called you?" And she said, "Well, emeritus professors." What did they ask you?" And she said, "Well, they were male emeritus professors, and they asked me, what kind of love are we talking about?" And
I
so that's how I
love
broke into Stony Brook. And the second day I was here, I walked up the stairs, and there was a guy at the top of the stairs who kind of looked like Mr. Clean, very burly and dark and deep. And he looked down at me, and I looked up and I said, "Sir, do I know you?" And he said, "Are you Dr. Post?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Are you going to save us?"
And you said yes. I
No,
love
no, I said, "Well, I'm not sure, but I'm glad to be here." And we got along fine, but I had to overcome, well, actually, it was a good, appropriate introduction because it
Mhm.
put people on alert.
Look out,
And
I'm coming.
yeah, and since then, I mean, a few years ago, we won the national award from Alpha Omega Alpha, which is the big Society of American Medicine, for the best program in professional identity formation because we
Wow.
really teach our students the art of compassion. We
Mhm.
have lots of different practices, different exercises, different things they do, and they get into great residencies. We have very high residencies in the top 20%. So that's what the place is now well known for. And I was happy to be able to do that. I don't think I saved the place, but I met a lot of people who were really helpful.
Well, they certainly think about it differently. Now, if you could sum it up in just, a couple of sentences for each, What's the difference between pure unconditional love and unconditional love? How can we explain that to our listeners so that they, in a simplistic form, how can we explain that anyways?
Yeah, well, I use unlimited love because that's the language that Sir John Templeton used,
Mm.
and he was a mentor for me. And I like the word unlimited because it's more cosmic. It's more about ultimate reality. It's more about physics and cosmology, and Sir John was very much into that. So unlimited love means, well, first of all, what is love? And I do have a definition in the book that I've used before, and I continue to use it. Um, when the well-being and the security of another is as real as meaning or as meaningful to you as your own,
Mhm.
sometimes more so, you love that person. Now, there are no fancy ancient languages in there. It's just common sense. It's really common sense. When you take someone who's had a hard day to Starbucks, that's a form of companionship, which is an expression of love. When someone comes in the office here and their son has relapsed with an opioid addiction and they're really distressed, then you connect with them. So I don't use the word love so much when I come to work day to day, but I think about more the major expressions of love that are easier for people to handle. So sometimes it's forgiveness. Maybe someone has made a very serious medical error that resulted in a lot of harm or even death to a patient, and they want to quit medicine. So my role is to say, well, what kind of love does that person need? I'm thinking about it from early in the morning, and I kind of anticipate it, and I'll tell them, Martin Luther King said, "Those who make no mistakes make nothing."
Mm.
And you have to expect that's part of the job, and no one's going to excoriate you for it. So it's carefrontation. Some people are just sort of getting off track, and they're great people, but they're doing silly, destructive things to themselves and to people around them. So carefrontation, which is a word that Scotty Peck taught me, M. Scott Peck, who did The Road Less Traveled,
Mhm.
he was a great friend. And he wrote me a long letter and he said, you always talk about love, but what about tough love? And I said, well, I don't like the language of tough love. And he said, okay, well, how about carefrontation, which he uses
That's
in
a
The
great
Road Less
word.
Traveled.
Yeah.
So it's better than confrontation, which
Mm.
assumes real animosity. I don't like that. I want to go into any sort of meeting of the minds with care at the heart of it, and then a willingness to do my best to bring people back in line with their essence, with their being, with their callings.
I'm going to teach my children that one, Stephen. That's the perfect word for me this week, carefrontation.
Yeah, instead of screaming all the time.
I'm gonna put that word at the forefront
It's a good one.
before I have the confrontations with my kids. I think it's terrific. I love it. It's the perfect way to describe this. So when you talk about unlimited love,
Yeah.
we're not always talking about a romantic partnership. You're not talking about your
Mm.
soulmate you're looking for. This is a love in a very different
Yes.
way of expression in this world. And I love that you use that. It's an expression of love because there isn't just one way of expressing love. There's lots. And I think we're going to be getting into that
Yeah.
today. As we
Yeah.
dive deeper into some of the questions that I have for you around the book. So when we're talking about unlimited love, it's not just one thing. It's the expressions, the many expressions of love that we can have
Yeah.
with multiple, whether that's love for your child, love for the world around us, love for the animals, love for a friend. It's all encompassing of love, but we
Mhm.
can express it in different ways. Is that really how you would look at defining
Well,
that for our audience today?
yeah, you have to express it in ways that are meaningful to the people that you anticipate encountering during the day.
Mm.
And I do that all the time. I mean, some people are just so devoid of laughter, and that is a problem in today's day and age. People have forgotten how to laugh. And, Norman Cousins started that great institute at UCLA on laughter and health. And it's so important to our well-being to be able to just let things go and laugh. And in a millisecond, our whole biochemistry switches. So I'm a believer in mirth, and as you know, I have lots of little jokes. They're all tasteful,
Always.
but most recently, because Halloween is coming,
It's coming, everybody. Get ready.
where do where do ghosts buy their houses?
In a ghost town.
No, 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 on
No.
dead end streets.
I was so
Eh,
close. I thought
Yeah,
I had
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I really like mirth, and it's so
one.
meaningful, and it's really an expression of love. I mean, if you come
Mm.
into a place like this medical school during COVID and no one has smiled for days, and you just have the right tasteful, uplifting bit of humor, uh, it helps everybody, turns
It
them around, and it's a
completely,
beautiful
it
thing.
totally does. I love it.
Yeah,
I know for everyone that's listening to this as well, just watching us laugh together and
yeah,
smile together, that alone we know can make you do the same thing, no matter how good or bad a joke is. Right?
that's right. Yeah,
Just
you have to have some tolerance, forbearance, especially for me. Um,
absolutely. So, Stephen, can I have a interesting question for you? And I'm a avid meditator. I meditate once and even sometimes twice a day. And I have a favorite app that I use, and even one specific teacher that I quite like. And she has this, her name is Sarah Blondin, and she's from here in Vancouver. And she has this beautiful meditation, and it's called What Do You Love? And it's a beautiful story about an old woman who sits down on her knees in front of her spiritual leader and pours her heart out about all the terrible things that are happening in her life and in her world. And her spiritual leader pauses for a moment and says, "Yes, but what do you love?" And the whole meditation is a practice on reminding yourself as you look out at this world of the things that we love and the things that we get to love in this human
yeah.
experience and form that we have. Do you think that love is actually a practice that we can do every day?
Oh, absolutely. It has to be. Otherwise, we have no hope. And so I'm like you, I'm up in the morning early and uh, things are quiet. It's a good time to be mindful or to meditate or to pray because the world isn't impinging on you. When you get out
Mm,
there to the workplace, when you get out there to the school, wherever it might be, suddenly, you're having to fend off all these emotional influences, which can be very destructive. But early in the morning, it's a beautiful time to be mystical. That's why the ancient Jewish Kabbalistic rabbis, they all said that the early morning is sacred time.
mm,
So when you want to meditate in the morning because you've just gotten up. When you get up in the morning, hopefully, you're not completely overwhelmed with activities. During the course of the day, you're running from point A to point B, and you don't have time to even breathe. But in the early morning, you're kind of in a place of timelessness.
mm. That's a
When I
nice way to
wake up in the
describe it.
morning,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I don't feel, I know I have to get up and so forth, but I don't feel time pressure. And I also don't quite know where I am because I could be in Long Island. I'm right now in Stony Brook, Long Island. But I could also be back in Cleveland or I could be in Vancouver.
Or any of the other places in the world that you could
Yeah,
be
yeah,
landing
yeah,
up in. Yeah.
because you don't have that much of a sense of time and place.
Hmm.
And that's very mystical because if the Hindus are right and if the Kabbalistic mystics are right, God, quote unquote, is beyond time and beyond
Right.
place. And so that's the time to do it. Now it's good. I agree with you. sometimes later in the day, especially if you just feel like you've been uh, discombobulated and pressured. It's a good thing to sort of pause and take just a minute or maybe 5 minutes and do some meditational exercise. But you want to get to it early in the morning and take advantage of that
Mhm.
space and that feeling that you have. So I do that in the morning, and what I do is I say to myself, there is only one mind. It's a chapter in the book, May You Know the One Mind.
Mhm.
I'm a big Larry Dossey fan. He was always a friend of mine for many, many years. I actually introduced him to Sir John Templeton
Of course you
25
did.
years ago at a, at a conference in Washington, D.C.
So when you
And
say, can I just stop you for one sec? When you say one mind, so people understand this, is this also the name for you for God or universal love or spirit or all of the
it,
names? The
it's
God of
all in
your so
there.
choosing? Okay.
Well, it's all in there. So I don't believe, nor did my neurology professor at the University of Chicago, the
Of course.
great Nobel Prize laureate Sir John Eccles, who figured out everything that we now know with various updates about the communication between brain cells. All that stuff about synapses, he came up on that. He was the
Mhm.
physiologist who really understood the brain for the first time. And I would work with him, and he always said to me, Stephen, don't let any of the neurologists tell you that mind is derived from matter. How he said it's like trying to get blood out of a stone. They're just ontologically different. And if anything, according to all of the great spiritual traditions, whether it's uh, Eastern or Western, Southern or Northern, mind comes first, mind before matter. And nowadays, a lot of great scientists, including, by the way, people like Lisa Miller, with her new book on the mind and the brain. There's a big organization, all the great names, Larry Dossey, you name it. They're
Mhm.
all they're all into this idea, which I've believed in from the time I was 15, that mind is primary and mind underlies reality, and that's what unlimited love is about. And I have a friend here, Jeffrey Trilling. I love this guy. He's just retiring. He's been the head of family medicine at Stony Brook for like 30 years. And I asked him, Jeff, in your mind, what is unlimited love? And I just want you to know this is what he said. It's actually in the introduction. And I'm going to read it to make sure I get it right. He said, he stood here in this office pondering for a few minutes. And he said, it's not just human emotion, but rather it is what you see, quote, when you close your eyes in this world for the last time, comma, hopefully. This guy is hilarious. And he has such a dry sense of, but he really meant that because he's been a great meditator all his life and has strong Buddhist inclinations.
Mhm.
And I think that's true. I think that, we've done a lot of writing on not, we don't call it near death experience. We call it RED, or the remembered experience of death. In fact, we did an article on this in Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences. I did this with Sam Parnia, who's the head of resuscitation medicine at NYU Langone, and everybody there respects him tremendously. And his work is such a high level that we don't want to sort of corrupt it with some of the less astonishing science that surrounds near-death experience. So Sam came up with a new idea, and everybody accepted it. We wrote this beautiful article and had a huge conference in New York on remembered experiences of death. And that that sense that people have of pure warmth and pure love, that is the ultimate reality. That is pure
Mhm.
unlimited love. And a lot of times it invades us.
Mhm.
I
And
like to tell, yeah.
And well, I was just gonna say, and so that's what you're describing when you say one mind. It is that state and that place that in this case you're describing as, the moment of your death and what happens at the moment of your death. But that's really, I just want to make sure that our listeners are really understanding what you're saying in this as we go back to that when we talk about the one mind, it is that
Yes.
place of warmth and love and peace and full acceptance and full everything, but it's just not at a physical level. It's at
No,
a
no.
energetic level because you're dead. You've left your body. But this is what remains when we come out of our physical form is this feeling of one mind.
And it's a
Or not
beautiful
even a feeling,
thing.
right? Yeah. Not a feeling
And
as you won't feel it the same way you do as in human
no,
form.
but
Yeah, but
but but
yeah.
but this is why in our study, which is a highly scientific study, which even
Hmm.
involved 6 areas of positive psychology as well as spirituality, this is why people feel transformed.
Hmm.
And we measure that in them, and it's quite dramatic. So for me, yeah, I mean the human being is more than body and material. And we need to recognize that. I think it's very important. So Sir John Eccles, again, Nobel Prize laureate, he believed that. And John Templeton, Sir John, as I always called him, we were friends for 15, 20 years. Um, Sir John always believed that mind was roughly equivalent to what we mean by God or supreme being or ultimate reality. When Sir John died, he died in Nassau, the island of Nassau, in Lyford Key. His son Jack, who was a pediatric trauma surgeon at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, called me on my flip phone. That's what we had in those days.
That's right. I
And,
don't, I'm that
and
generation too.
yeah, yeah. So I got a call on my flip phone, and it was Jack. And he said, "Dad is dying." And I said, "Jack, I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh my goodness, is there anything I can do?" That, by the way, that's an expression of pure unlimited love. Somebody just needs a little help.
Mm,
Helping
of
itself
course.
is a loving action. So he said, "Well, actually, Dad does have something for you. Has a little chore for you." And I said, "What could that be?" Well, he has a book that he wants to write, and he can't write it now because he's going to be dead in a week. But he wants you to write it
Okay.
for. Yeah, I mean, Sir John wrote 4 or 5 great books. He said he wants you to write it because he thinks you understand his thought and his heart better than anybody else. And so I was humbled and I said, "Oh my goodness, well, I'm honored that he feels that way. What's the project?" And he said, he wants you to write a book for him, and it's got to be called Unlimited Love is Ultimate Reality. Now, here I am. I've been at Case and Michigan and Stony Brook and all these places, and that's a heck of a thing to prove.
Right.
So I said, "Jack, could you go back to Sir John's bed and ask him if we could have a slight adjustment of the title?" And he said, "Well, I guess I could." And he came back a couple of minutes later. I gave him a suggestion. He said, "It's okay. Is ultimate reality unlimited love? Question mark." So I was able to just talk
You
about it
flipped it
as
around.
as as plausible and not prove anything. And it was a good book, and it came out with the Templeton Press, and it captured Sir John's core ideas,
Mhm.
which are all about mind and ultimate reality. And
Mhm.
he loved the mystics and he loved the great physicists. Sir John
But
was
he
that
loved
kind.
science too. That's
Yeah.
so much of who they are. I feel that, what I love what you're talking about right now that our audience will understand because they won't know all of these people that you
No,
travel in
no.
your circle with by any means. I know lots of them, but the average person doesn't know all of them, is is that you're taking this beautiful combination of what is, like you said, positive psychology, it's science, and it's spirituality. And we're at this really what I think is a pivotal point in our expansion as a human
Yeah.
centered society that we can take all this. It's no longer just, that word woo woo, spiritual woo
Oh,
woo. It's all being backed up. It's not one thing or the other. It actually is what the mystics have been saying all of this time. It is
yeah.
both. We live in both states in this
Yes.
form, which is the
Yeah.
absolute gift all the way along. People don't even realize as we're going through this, and one of the things I love about this book is it's filled with practices. I am all about practices. That's where I come from. And people, when I started 365 Give, it's for me, it was the daily practice of giving. But what I realized through my daily practice of giving was that love really is that moment by moment daily
Mhm.
practice. And what I love
Yes.
most about your book is you have, I'm going to call them a list of practices in your book, which people are going to be able to understand and follow. And you've actually already mentioned two. And one of them is mirth. One of them is this concept of one mind, which we just talked about. And you just mentioned one other one. And you kind of slipped it under the rug. We're not slipping this one under the rug because this is how you and I know each other as
Okay.
well. This body of work you have in the world. And you mentioned giving. So talk to
Yeah.
us about giving as a practice. Because really, I mean,
Sure.
I cold called you on this one when I was giving with my son because I wanted to meet the man who knew
Oh,
more
come
about
on.
giving than anybody.
No, I
Oh,
think
I did. I
you're
did.
the number one. The first chapter of this book is written in the shape of a mantra.
Oh,
So,
yeah, that's right.
pure unlimited love,
Hmm.
and then may you give and glow. That's the first
Right.
chapter. Then may
Right.
you heal with kindness. May you follow your callings. May you raise kind children, which you have. May you cherish the gift of nature. May you honor the spirit of freedom. May you know the one mind. So those are the essential pathways. And then on each pathway, there's this wheel of love, which has these 10 different expressions, some of which we've talked about. And you want to sort of approach each pathway with all the different expressions of love that you might need on a given occasion.
Right.
So for me, it's in this chapter, I talk a lot about kind giving because I think kindness is so important to really reaping the benefits of giving. It's not just the act of giving, although science shows that people can behave in generous ways without really feeling much kindness toward the other. And in a lot of cases, they'll sort of come around and they realize that, hey, kindness is better than all that hostility and bitterness. So that's why people sometimes say, even if you're not particularly happy, still smile. Because just by smiling, the very musculature of your face feeds into your emotional centers. And so, just by helping people, by being kind, by being generous, you can shift into kindness. But you can also, about a third of people already have that kindness in place. And for them, it's more natural. But the studies of high school kids, including in Vancouver, by the way, who do service-based learning, there's three groups. They're the ones who are just so generous and kind and compassionate. They take to this like a duck to water. There are those who are much more reticent or reluctant, but if they have a good mentor and if they're helping in an area that they find meaningful over time, they'll come around and their emotions will shift. And then there's this other really recalcitrant third, and they may not come around for quite a while, maybe in midlife, who knows? But that's all okay. It's all good. So
Well,
I like kind giving.
but you mentioned two things. You mentioned kindness, and
Mm.
you mentioned giving us two separate mantras within your book.
Well, in that chapter, it's all about giving with kindness.
Right.
And I work in a clinical environment and we're always encouraged to connect with patients, some of them quite in desperate situations. And um, they know what it is when someone comes in the room and can do the role playing of what I'll just call cognitive empathy. They know
Right.
how to ask them, so how are you doing today? What's bothering you? And then they'll reflect these responses back and say, so did I hear you correctly? And the patient will have a feeling that, yeah, I mean, someone actually has a little bit of concern for me, but they'll also feel deprived if they don't have that sense of presence or emotional empathy or affective empathy that people now talk about. And that's actually very hard to teach because most of the studies on toddlers and young kids point out that it all happens very early in life. And if the wrong buttons get pushed, you're on a remedial course, and you are more susceptible to physical and mental illnesses in early life, but in midlife too. And so these things are important. So we want our students to have that full sense of empathy that includes the affective side, but also not to be frightened of suffering. Because a lot of people are. They don't want to come near suffering. And so there are certain fields of medicine where they probably don't want to focus. But I have a student who's doing his residency now in anesthesiology at Stanford. Great guy, one of the most compassionate people I know. And he went into anesthesiology because he knew that these people going into major surgeries were worried and anxious, rightly so. And they needed somebody who could really connect with them at that deeper level, that more primal level of empathy, not just sort of go through the routine, saying the right things and so forth. And he has such a gift and he's doing beautifully. So, I think that that's what we need to remember is that, and what is kindness? I mean, kindness does not take a lot of training. It's not empathy. It's not compassion. You can be kind just by, um, the right dad joke or just, opening the door for someone. Um, Kindness is a simple kind of a thing. And so I'm a big believer in kindness, but it's not some of the more advanced sorts of generosity, if you will.
It's the simplest. It's a simple form that we can all do, and a beautiful
Yes,
practice in itself,
yes, it is. Yes,
without a doubt. And I think these are all interconnected. I think that,
yes.
when I listen to you talk about love and one mind, I always think back to when, most children are born, and when
Mhm.
we're born before the world has come in and programmed us all to hell.
Yes,
And we've been exposed to, as you were just talking about, lots of different things from whether it's the moment you're born, it can even be in the womb, that that's when your ideas are formalized a little bit more, or how you show up in your personality. But I think at the core
yes,
of who we are, I think we do have that beautiful common thread that we all have this ability and a sense of love when we start.
yes.
What human being doesn't goo and gaw over a baby? Because let's be serious, they don't mouth back. They don't fight you on
Well,
anything. They just stand there as pure love, and we all feel that, and our
well,
oxytocin turns on, and we're
well,
all happy.
yeah. So the Institute for Research on Pure Unlimited Love, which I started and still lead, the first thing we did was to fund the Yale Child Studies Center because we wanted to know how much natural empathy does a toddler have? These
Yes.
negative images of the toddler that they're just swashbuckling troublemakers, and all you can do is try to keep a lid on them, some kind of a thin veneer over a seething, boiling cauldron, that
Yes,
kind
the
of thing.
terrible twos. Yes.
Yeah, that's what Freud was teaching, and the Skinnerians and all those people.
That's right.
But Rousseau believed that the natural child, this is in his Emile, has a lot of beautiful empathy and that it's wired into us. And that's what Darwin believed at the end of his life too, with group
Yes.
selection. But the first 5 lines of the second chapter, the second path, may you heal with kindness. Um, as we come in, just reflecting on your statement, as we come into this world with our first breath, we are completely open. There is no judgment, no preformed sense of self or other. We are in that moment pure love. Before words, before rational thought, our visceral experience penetrates deeply. We sense the complete love of a parent holding us just after birth as it flows into every fiber of our being. And if there is fear, worry, or rejection, this too is felt in full measure. I think you were getting at that.
That was obviously you encapsulate that in words that I did not fully express. But
But it's
yes,
so important.
it's so important that we understand that really so much of what goes on with us or our understanding of love or how that changes over time based on what we're fed. And now, obviously, fed through media, fed through the leaders of the world, fed through so many. Listen, our
Yeah.
parents, our experiences, the places we live, our culture, the layers keep going of how our brain, and I'm not going to say mind because now I'm thinking of mind completely differently, but how literally our brain has been changed because of
Yeah.
that, and how we get taken away from that core of who we are. And what I'm loving about your book the most is that all of these steps we're talking about and this mantra that we can take into our life is taking us back to that. It's
Yeah.
almost like you're coming home to yourself, is the way I like to describe it. When
That's
we
a
have
wonderful
these
statement.
practices, right? You're
Yes.
coming back to who you
Who you
truly
are.
are. Yes.
Yeah. And so the fourth chapter is May You Raise Kind Children. And that
Mm.
means don't push all the wrong buttons.
Good
So,
luck.
so okay. So there's a book called Scream-Free Parenting, and it happens to be the case that 98% of American parents fess up to just screaming bloody murder at their young kids, which is not healthy. But but it happens, and I understand that.
It
And you
does.
know, this love is very natural until you hit two, and then you've got to work at it a little bit harder, be more strategic. But absolutely. So one of the things that the Institute did was we funded $4 million into studies on how to raise kind children. No one had ever done that before. But if you can keep them in touch with that primal empathy and kindness and love, and not suppress it or destroy it, which is easy to do.
Very.
Uh, and if you do destroy it, they're going to wind up in trouble
Yeah.
uh, in a
Well,
thousand ways that I
just
won't.
look at our world. That's all we have to
Yeah,
do. Just take a look at lots of parts of our world, and it's a pure reflection of our children and how they've been
yeah,
raised, but not just this generation. I'll let you know, yesterday I was talking to my mother, and I'll admit it, I yelled at my son the other day. He had done something that was just so not good. And I did end up yelling at my son. And then the next day I called my mother and I thanked her for the beautiful lesson she taught me about yelling at your children. And because I realized as I reflected back, it was what I was taught. It's what,
yeah.
that's what my parents taught
That's
me. Yell at your kids, right? We got yelled at, and the generation before that got yelled at, right?
yeah,
Or quieted, right? We just weren't allowed to even go there.
yeah.
So
It's
it's
transmitted.
completely and totally. And I caught myself, but I'll also let you know, Stephen, that today I went to my son and I said how sorry I was for yelling at him. And I
Yeah, yeah,
also said that I yelled at him not because I was angry. I yelled at him because I was scared.
yeah,
And I realized that that anger was actually the fear that I was having of the choices that he was making that were not healthy for him and the people and his friends that he was with. And I was scared for him that he was
yes.
taking a difficult path right now. But I did go back.
Carefrontation.
Oh my God,
Carefrontation.
that's the word right there. I did care. Yes,
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
it.
yeah. Not confrontation, but
No,
carefrontation.
that's right. But I should have done that first.
Yeah,
Not
yeah, yeah.
after. So next time I'm going to do carefrontation first. Thank you. We just explained that in real life right
But I
there.
have to say, I did not invent that word for your audience. It was invented
That's
by a
okay.
very dear friend of mine, M. Scott Peck,
Yes, you did say
who
that.
wrote a
Yeah.
great book.
No.
Uh, and
It's a
The
very
Road Less
famous book.
Traveled.
Yeah, The
Yeah,
Road
Road
Less
Less
Traveled.
Traveled was a bestseller for 2 years.
Yeah.
He
It's a
went to
great book.
yeah, I was at Case Western Medical School, and he'd graduated from there, but he'd been away for a long time practicing psychiatry in Connecticut mostly. and we became pen pals, and we were
I love
talking a lot
that.
on the phone. I have a whole folder of letters between the two of us. And he said, the problem with you, Post, is that when you think about love, it's a little too soft because as a practicing psychiatrist, I sometimes have to figure out how to really confront some challenging situations. So he said, you need to use my word, carefrontation.
Confrontation.
And it was like a
Absolutely.
eureka. And we need that with our kids.
We do. I'm gonna do a post on this one. I love it. I'm gonna go back. I have read that book, but it's been a lot of years, so I'm gonna go back and revisit that
Well,
book. So thank
he was
you.
a great guy. He was a great
I
guy.
love that. Okay, so Stephen, we've now been through May You Give and Glow. We've been through May You Heal with Kindness. We've been through May You Raise Kind
Kind
Children.
children.
We're there. We're working on that one
The
still.
next one is
May
may you
May You Know
follow
One
your
Mind. Yeah.
callings. May you
May
follow your
Okay, let's
callings.
talk about that one. Follow your callings.
Okay. So this is what you're worried about your son with. Uh,
Oh.
so, so I begin that chapter with the great Russian Jewish artist Mark Chagall. And he was, I think, the greatest artist of the 20th century. He grew up in a little town on the border of Russia, and his father had a small business where he pickled herring. And he wanted Mark to take it over. Most dads do, I guess. So Mark just felt intuitively that it was not his destiny to pickle herring. So when he was 17, he ran away, and he ran away to St. Petersburg. And when he was in St. Petersburg, he had to sleep in the alleyways. He was not yet an artist, but he did sketching, and he was finding out his gifts in sketching. Um, and one night he's sleeping in the alley on a big mattress next to a huge guy who was a construction worker, uh, and sort of pushing Mark Chagall, a young Mark, against the wall. And Mark's looking upwards, and he sees a blue angel. And the blue angel descends from on high, and Mark felt this incredible sense of peace. 15 years later, he wrote a book called My Life when he was, at that time, a famous artist and living in Moscow. And he talked about this. It's the essence of the book and of his life. So he sees this angel, and then he feels such peace, and he realizes that blue is the color of love. He believed that all of his life. So there you have it. There you have it. That's right. So the angel ascends, and not realizing if he's awake or asleep, Chagall, this is a young Chagall, he's like 18. That morning, he does his first really great painting, The Apparition. And it's got the blue angel and white and all these things. And if you go look at the Chagall windows at the UN, at the Art Institute in Chicago, if you go to Israel, to the hospitals there, everything he did had to do with the color of love and blue angels. I mean, there were some
I
exceptions, like
love
during the
that.
Holocaust.
Yeah.
And so he was great. And even Picasso, who was a cubist, he could not understand, although he loved Chagall. He thought Chagall was the greatest artist of the century, not himself. And he said, that Marc Chagall, he must have angels floating around his brain. And he did. When he died in the outskirts of Paris, he was painting a blue angel. And so this is a situation where that one mind, talk about the one mind, broke into his consciousness through that vision of an angel. Whether you believe in angels or not, I don't care. But it was a vision of an angel. And from that day on, he never departed from his calling. He had a true
I love
calling. Now,
that.
a lot of us just, we get our callings because we volunteer in different ways as adolescents, and we figured out what we kind of want to do, and maybe we shift callings. But he had a really deep sense. And, I, uh, the great inventor, not Einstein, but Edison, was born in Ohio, actually, on a farm. And he would go into school. By the age of 12, the teachers threw him out. They said they never wanted to see him
That's
again
right. I
because,
know the story.
I mean, His mind just wasn't normal. And he went home, and his mother, uh, with kindness and love and care, counseled him. And she said, you can invent a lot of things. You could even create, as she said, you could be a light to the world. That's a quote. She said,
Oh, I love
Thomas,
that.
you could be a light to the world. And he was in the barn tinkering, and eventually he was a light to the world
He was the whole
because
world.
his mother never gave up on him. And so the conviction there is that every human being has some sort of set of special gifts, some combination of talents. And the worst thing you can do is to say to somebody, well, um, they're not good for anything. That's
Hmm.
what I call in the book de-dignification.
Yeah,
It's humiliation.
of
And in our
course.
school systems, a lot of people are humiliated. They're really being taught to fit in,
They
and
are.
their careers looking forward are just going to be fitting into these very dry, routine jobs. And what they should be doing is focusing more on discovering your callings.
Yes. I love that. It's the same as how let's, use the mighty Oprah, she's always talked about finding your purpose, right? Or finding why you're here, what that is for you. And it doesn't have to be just a job. I think 365 Give is a great example of that for me is yes,
Yes,
it's part of the job I do, but I do it as a volunteer. I do it because I love it. But it's been my calling for me. And I've been so
yes,
clear on that, in so many ways. And I think the work that you do with Unlimited Love, it has been your calling. It's been so clear to you. You said since the age of 15, you already
yeah.
knew. And so it just,
Since I met you, I knew this was your calling.
I love that. Perfect. Well, and you can see for me, his was a blue angel. I'm going to go look him up now. Mine is a blue heart. It always has. I've always said blue is a spiritual color of love. And so I always wear it near my heart. If you saw my house, I've got them all over the
Yeah.
place.
So you
But it's
so
the
th-
same thing for me.
so you need to know that. Just go to Amazon and order. It's a
I
little
will.
paperback. My Life. It's a thin paperback,
Okay,
but that
perfect.
story of how the Blue Angel appeared to him, and
I
he
love
wasn't in a
that.
dream. He was kind of in a mystical state. He
Yeah.
was not awake. He wasn't asleep.
Yeah. Yeah, my
And there,
hearts are not mystical. I've got them. There we go. I've got a blue heart here. I've got another one tattooed on my foot. They're my reminder all the
yeah.
time.
So blue is the color of love,
I
and
love
that
it. I love
and
that.
and, and so those and so these things are important. And when kids can discover their calling,
Hmm.
then
And,
they
and
can
we
practice
foster
love.
it
They
in
can
them
practice
too,
giving.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can force.
I think as
Mhm.
parents we get to see that the most in our children. I've chosen with my kids actually to do school in a completely different way. And no, I don't homeschool. I'm not that gifted parent, but we do high school in a different way that they actually just get to choose their
Mhm.
favorite things that they want to go and explore. So, they can do woodworking and metal and auto. And we don't worry about all the, social studies. We don't worry about all the things that are more difficult for them and they're challenged with because they have learning differences. We just keep moving, and I keep encouraging that movement towards what they love. And
Yeah,
it so far has been a remarkable success
yeah.
from my
And they give and
perspective.
glow. People give and glow if they find their callings. They have
Completely,
a
they do.
lifetime of protracted glowing.
Completely, because they're
And
happy and they're centered and they feel connected to themselves, most
and it's
importantly.
spiritually connected. It's spiritually
Hmm.
centered.
Yes,
So give and glow and
I love
sticking.
that.
Now we unfortunately we get off track with our callings. Maybe
We do. Yep.
we get an offer for a job with a little more money,
That's right.
or
Or the temptation. I think sometimes there's just a temptation to pull you away from it too, just to see if you know,
yeah, oh
you'll
yeah,
stick
yeah,
with it, right?
yeah. So you won't have enemies, but you will have adversaries.
Yes.
I've had
Yes.
tons of adversaries. I mean, when I started the institute in the medical school at Case Western, people thought I had gone crazy, and
Right. I
you
can
know,
imagine.
you can't. It's over the top. But ultimately they come around, and Stony
They do.
Brook, to its great credit, has been very receptive to me.
Hmm.
So I mean, across the hallway is the laboratory where the guy who invented MNR, nuclear magnetic resonance, did it all. He got the Nobel Prize right here.
Right.
So
I
these
love
are
it.
these are serious researchers, but they
Absolutely.
like having me around, which is shocking, totally shocking. But
That's
anyway,
your
so there's
frequency. Okay, we got two more to go still. So let's keep
well,
moving. Okay.
so the next, so the fifth one is may you know the one mind.
Well, yep, we did that one. So
Yeah.
let's
And then
we've got
the sixth one is may you cherish the gift of nature.
oh, okay. Let's talk about
And
that. Are we
well,
talking tree bathing here?
among other things, among other things. I mean, if your listeners, if they go to the local meditation center in their village, they'll probably find some flowing water and
Yes.
some wind chimes, and there is something about being close to nature that frees us from a lot of our preoccupations,
Hmm.
the problems of the self that are holding us back. When you get into beautiful nature, Emily Carr in Vancouver, my favorite
Mm,
woman artist,
artist.
she was awesome.
Yeah.
And there's a museum, there's an Emily Carr museum there now
Yes,
too.
there is. Yes.
And it's, I have her books. I just think she was fabulous. But the way she painted those trees, the brown bark, the deep green, the rich wooded areas, she had found her calling, obviously. And it was as an artist and to portray for a generation the incredible beauty of nature.
Well, and she
So
captured the essence, I think, of nature. She just didn't capture the way that it looked like in a photograph. She captured the true essence of nature,
yes,
which I think is
yes,
really what you're talking about.
it
I
is.
have this practice when I go out so I don't just meditate, just like sitting still and, trying to shut off my mind. I'm better. I actually have my best meditations when I'm walking for me personally.
Yes,
And one of the things that I do when I start my meditation, I live in Vancouver, so I am surrounded by trees everywhere you look and really big ones, is I remind myself that I'm having this absolutely beautiful exchange with the trees. Every breath I breathe in, they're giving me life, and every breath out, I'm giving them life. And it's this fantastic, it's the way I start my breathing, is that I'm having this beautiful exchange with them because we actually wouldn't be here without each other. We feed off each other. And I think we
yes,
forget that at times, and it's the same if you go smelling. I'm the girl who stops and smells the roses everywhere I go. But again, you're having this beautiful exchange with a flower that actually gives you the pheromones in your body that make you feel
yes.
better. And how magical are all of these? And this is what I think about when I'm out walking. How magical is it that we were born for each other, to feed off,
Oh,
to make each
amen.
other feel better, to feel well, to feel healthy. That's the
Yes.
beautiful connection with nature that I think people don't realize, is that we literally
It's
couldn't do this
vital.
life without each other,
It's
literally. And
vital. It's
then, yeah, then we make each other feel better too.
Yeah.
So,
So now there's something that some psychiatrists are using linguistically, nature deficit disorder.
oh,
And
not surprised at all.
I
Yeah.
include that in my book.
Yeah.
It's not formal diagnostic language, but it's clear. So I
Yes.
sometimes go to these psychiatric units, the emergency units, just to look around and see where people are at, especially on a Friday night or Saturday night where it's really crazy. And they're all struggling with this nature deficit disorder. And I just think if they could only reconnect
Mhm.
with nature, they would have a much better life and they would probably use fewer medications.
Yeah.
So, your audience, if they
Right.
can go to
Oh,
hopewell.cc, that's a
well,
350-acre
dot
farm
CC. Okay.
in eastern Ohio near the Pennsylvania border. And it's the most successful place now for people with bipolar or
Oh, that's right.
schizophrenia. And they're out in the countryside and they're baling the hay, they're getting the eggs from the chicken coop, they're handling the horses for the equestrian programs, and they're also reflecting on positive psychological themes in small groups of just six or seven. Week after they switch after a week. They'll go from happiness to gratitude to kindness to forgiveness to wisdom and so forth. And they learn to relate to one another empathically. There's no cell phones. There's no computers.
Good
And
place to start.
yeah, by the way, I was
Okay.
up in Montreal in the summer And I had an opportunity to encounter the guy who's called the father of AI. He's from the
Mm,
University of Toronto.
right.
And,
Yes.
and he quit Google because he felt
I know.
that there was no way ultimately to control AI.
Right.
And this is a serious matter. So there's now,
I've listened to his podcast. It's pretty
yeah,
remarkable. Yeah.
yeah, he's at U of Toronto,
Yeah.
and he's a great guy. And for him, there's something called AI psychosis.
Hmm.
Everybody needs to Google that. I mean, I'm in a medical school, and AI is just everywhere now.
Of course.
And we try to limit it and not take the humanism out of medicine, but it's difficult to manage it. Very difficult. And so there's a side to me that just wants to go off the grid on Route 80 somewhere. Sorry. That's my favorite highway for you listeners.
Exactly. Well, and understandable, but it's also interesting, Stephen, because you kept saying, and towards the beginning of our conversation as well, is that oh, who was the person? I'm just looking back at my notes to see if I can find it. Is that this experience that we're in, when you talked about uh, the experience of life that we're in, it actually in some ways sounded very AI to me. It's like when my kid goes into his headset that he has, his meta headset, and he gets to experience a whole other world, right? And
Yeah,
it is that experience as well. And it's going to be fascinating with AI to see how that, somebody said that to me the other day, because I think people are in such fear, obviously, of AI and all of the fear that's out there, and it's going to wipe out humanity and it's going to do all of these things.
yeah,
And boy, my listeners are going to take this one
yeah.
in an
Now,
interesting way. But I have a philosophy as well that we forget
mhm,
that AI actually, we keep saying it's not human, and I understand it's run on technology. I get all that. I know how it works, but it's still everything it has in it is human. It's human
yes.
information, it's human experience, it's human dialogue, it's human history. And there may come a point where, yes, they may wipe out humans in this form, in this body that we take, but they're
Well,
still very human in their own crazy way.
so my response to that, respectfully,
Yes, no, do it. Let's,
I mean,
we probably should have a whole podcast on
you
this.
know, you can do cognitive empathy with AI. You can
Yes,
set
absolutely.
up a
Yeah,
program,
yeah,
and you can Google now. If you're struggling with life,
yes.
you can go to AI and you can ask them if they have a solution for your suffering. And they will come back with these very well rehearsed, beautifully made statements.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm so sorry for you. And maybe. So the problem is that there are now so many AI related suicides among adolescents.
Hmm. I've heard
There
that.
are
I just heard that
400.
yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah, there are 400 of them actually. I've been
yeah,
counting. And these are young people who, maybe they've never really connected interpersonally very well. Maybe they were locked down during COVID, which I feel was a big mistake.
yeah.
Uh, and so now what are they doing? They're just hooked up into these chat groups and these various AI type modalities, and that's where they're getting their coaching from. Okay, they should be
Yeah,
getting it from
yeah.
you. So the AI does not have a moral telos, a moral goal, a moral end. It's intelligent,
Hmm.
but it can guide people toward their destruction. Just a
But
month ago,
Stephen,
yeah,
Stephen,
yeah,
so do humans,
yeah. Oh, yeah, I know that.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, this
yeah.
is the whole thing with me is we keep saying this, so do humans. That's where they've learned it from. Like we are not realize we've programmed these things
Okay.
on our humanness. So if humanity gets destroyed, the only people we have to blame, I'm sorry, is ourselves because it's learning from us.
Yeah, but there's also such a thing as autonomous technology.
Don't disagree. Listen, I'm
Okay,
not
so I
saying
agree with
yeah,
I'm not disagreeing with
yeah.
you either. I'm just
And I'm
saying,
not disagreeing with you either, but
I just think
right?
it's a rich conversation and it has to be had. And so that's so cherishing nature. I go out on the ferry at least every couple of weeks. And I just ride the ferry across the Long
Love
Island
that.
Sound from Port Jefferson Station, which is near where we live. And I take the PT Barnum over to Bridgeport, which is not a place to get off. And I just stay on the ferry and ride back.
And
It's
come
about three
back.
hours. And
I love
it's like,
that.
I mean, you have such beautiful nature where you are in Vancouver.
Well, biggest ferry system in the world here in Vancouver, right? I get
Oh
those
yeah,
rides.
yeah.
They're spectacular.
And I'm so refreshed and so stimulated by it.
Yeah.
So there's a deep mystical aspect,
Hmm.
spiritual mystical aspect that Emily Carr, your Emily Carr, better than anyone else, better than Georgia O'Keeffe and all these other artists of nature, she understood it and she captured it
Yeah.
so fantastically that
I
she's
agree.
that's why she's my favorite. But then the seventh part of this is
Yes.
may you honor the spirit of freedom.
Okay. And yeah, this is the one I wanted to dig into a little bit too. This is a big word that's been coming up for me this week is the word freedom. Freedom and peace. So talk to us about that. We honor that.
Well, so I'm not a materialist, you gather that.
Yes.
And and so I've always been influenced by, for example, the great Russian uh, philosopher and theologian Nikolai Berdyaev, who wrote everything about freedom and love.
Mm,
And if you look at the Upanishads, what is the nature of the supreme being of the original mind? It has three elements. One is creativity, two is love, and three is freedom.
mm,
And so we are each, in Hindu thought, we are each in the image of a God. We actually have that divinity within us. Namaste, I honor the divine in you. It's within us. So we are inclined toward love, creativity, and freedom. That's so important to realize. It's not something that just comes because we're like an animal trying to chew our way through a chain. It's deeper than that. It's not just understood biologically. It's a spiritual gift. And so Sir
mm.
John Templeton once, when he was running the Templeton Fund, which was the most successful um, mutual fund in history, really, he wrote a letter to everyone who was invested in his fund. And it was very short. It said, do you know that your mind is a gift? Now, what they said, what they thought about that, I have no idea. But that was Sir John. So if you believe that your mind is part of this one mind, then your freedom, your love, your creativity is also part of this one mind if you realize it, if you cultivate it. And that's why uh, if you honor the spirit of freedom, it's partly a matter of just having insight into where is freedom born within us.
Mm.
Okay, it's within us, and it's not something that we can take lightly, that we can dishonor. So many people abuse their freedom. I'm pretty disciplined, you know, um, and I
How do you practice freedom, Stephen?
well, I pursue my callings. I mean, freedom is related to callings. I mean, I've never gotten off track on my callings. I'm getting older now, but I've been really blessed. I've just stayed with my callings, even when it was difficult. There was a time, when I was teaching uh, in Mercy College of Detroit, and I was earning $16,000 a year. That was like 1900 and 1980 or so. And, we would have to debate what to do with our meager income because we had to buy diapers for our daughter at the time. And, it was not simple. And I did not like to take money from my parents, and I never did. Um, so, eventually, I got to a point where I was doing better and better, but I had to work hard at it and be creative and write a lot of good stuff. And I believe that life is a journey. That's the freedom of life. It's a journey.
Mm,
This is what uh, some of the great mystics have said that when you're on the journey of life, you're never quite sure who you're going to encounter, but you have freedom because you can respond to those people in positive, constructive ways, unless they're sociopaths. But hopefully, you can encounter them, and in your freedom, you can make the most of it. That's what synchronicity is
Mm,
about. That's what God and Love on Route 80 is about. It's an
right.
earlier book of mine. Where you just meet people and they're the perfect person. This is what Carl Jung meant by synchronicity. You have to have freedom to have synchronicity, to meet the perfect person at the perfect time who says the perfect thing as if therefore, in absolute heavenly causality. I mean, this is what Jung talked about, a cause and effect, causality with a capital C. So there is that, and you need freedom to pursue your journey, but that's a spiritual freedom.
So, Stephen, would this be the same? And our friend, or my friend, who we've both had time together with, Neil Donald Walsh, he talks about that the gift that was given to us is that we do have free will and free choice in so many areas of our life, and how we, and I'm not talking about there's lots of people who would not feel that they're free within their own countries or their own homes or where they
Sure.
live, but you still have free choice on how you show up in this world. You have a choice. It's like what you're saying with all of these things. You have a choice to show up as kind, as
Yeah.
giving. You have that free will and choice. Is that part of the freedom conversation?
Oh, yeah. And that's why Viktor
Okay.
Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning became such a
Right.
classic and still is because he was
Yeah.
in the Warsaw Ghetto and they were starving people to death there.
Yeah.
And he would share his very meager bit of food with someone who looked more emaciated than he was.
Yeah.
And in doing that, he found so much purpose and meaning and hope
And
in life
freedom.
and freedom
Freedom
and freedom.
himself.
He,
Yeah.
he had to be free to do that. So
Yes.
that's spiritual
Mm,
freedom. And
love
and
that.
and so you have to have freedom. There's no love without freedom.
So, Stephen, I have a quick just question for you around this too is, we all have this lovely monkey mind that runs constantly in our head, feeding us information. And I think that a lot of it is there to keep us safe and protect us in our world, for free from danger, shall we say. Sometimes I struggle personally. I say, I wish I had freedom from myself. How do
Uh,
I gain freedom from myself? What is it? What is the practice that I could start to have freedom from sometimes that road that my mind takes me down that, I can't seem to, I almost say cut the tether. I feel like I'm tethered to it sometimes and I just need to, I wish I could just cut it up, cut the umbilical cord so it wouldn't feed me the crap
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, so the Buddhists call that the monkey mind, as you just did,
Yes.
and and the way you get beyond that is through mindfulness.
Yeah. Okay. I'll keep
And
practicing. I'll keep practicing.
keep practicing. I mean, so with our medical students, they go from patient to patient on their rotations, and when they come to every new patient's door, they pause. They don't just
Mm,
walk in, but they pause in the hallway and they take a deep breath, and they know how to do mindfulness. So just for 30 seconds, they'll do a mindfulness exercise. Then they'll knock on the door and hopefully get permission to enter. Not always, but sometimes they do. A lot of times they do. And then they'll walk in, and their first job is to look, to observe. That's kind of what Herb Benson meant by the relaxation effect at Harvard all those years ago. Just observe a point on the wall, and that will slow down your mind. Pay
mm,
attention to your breathing. But in the clinical setting, it's stop, look. We even have them do courses where they go to museums and they observe wonderful works of art, and then we ask them questions. So did you notice that? Did you see that person in the back and on the picture and the more they focus their brains on observation, the better doctors they become because there are now a couple of dozen fabulous articles on how doctors avoid premature diagnostic closure, right? They get the right diagnosis because they observe more carefully. But their minds are not trained to do that because they're getting their information from the AI down the hall.
From
You
a
know,
book or from AI
yeah,
who read the book.
yeah. But I mean, you have to come into the patient's room. You have to observe the patient
Observe.
and then listen. So stop, look, listen, and that's in the book.
Yeah,
In the chapter on May You Heal with Kindness, you have to stop, you have to look, and you have to listen. And that's a sociology of life. It's not just in medicine.
yeah.
It's on the streets of Vancouver.
Well, Stephen, I'll like that just, and it just came into my head when you said that. The first word I ever taught my kids how to spell, how to say, and then a song to go with it was the word stop. Because even at the age of 2, my boys would go streaming down my back lane behind my house on their push bikes. And, there's a stop sign at the end. And so that was I needed them to flat out stop when I needed them to stop. And that was because they just
Sure.
went so fast. But we had a little song that even when I was teaching them how to cross a road, it was the exact same word, stop, look, and listen.
Yeah.
And there's a little chant that goes with that. I'm going to use that as well now
It's
to go
important.
back, right? It's the mantras our mothers teach us that, stay with us that we actually didn't know the meaning, the full meaning of it. And I love that as a practice. I do that practice. I probably, I think this is kind of where I want to wrap it today too, because I want people to go read your book. The pre-order is
Thank
here.
you.
We're gonna have all the links down below. You can get it. I need you to go study this Wheel of Love. I'm not even going to touch on that today because I want you to go get the book, most importantly, so you get the full words of wisdom and the understanding and the journey that Stephen has been through in his life because it really shares it with us in this book, which is absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
It's going to be your new Bible for creating a life that you love.
Yeah.
You just
It's
wrote
just
a
a
Bible,
service.
Stephen. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I'm, by the way, I do have an Episcopalian background, but I'm not very rigid.
Well,
Far
I think
from it.
you've created your own Bible that we can
I
follow.
had to. I had to because,
Yeah,
so many of those dogmas were created in the third century for political reasons.
right?
I'm
Exactly.
sorry, I mean, Elaine Pagels at Princeton has spent her whole life talking about this. And so
Yeah.
we need to think freely, and our kids and their kids need something that's new and novel. And
Yeah.
so this idea of the seven paths and the wheel of love, all the different expressions of love, and to be more attentive to that and purposeful about it, it's about the best we can do.
And I think I don't really want to come back around to this. These are all to me practices. And these aren't like
Yeah.
21 days and you got it done and you're good to go. It's more than that, isn't it, Stephen? This is something that I say this, I just said this now, right? I still have those moments. I want freedom from myself. That's my next, call it my next level of expansion, right? I know that's going to be a lifelong practice. I can't bypass my humanness. So if I don't
Yeah.
have these practices
Yeah.
that you have shared with us today and I don't integrate them as part of the way, like literally my way of being, the way I want to show up in the world,
Yeah.
I know I'm going to go down a drain. I've watched myself go down the drain. I've,
Yes.
gotten myself out of the pits of despair. But what I love about these practices is I know that those pits, when they feel a bit dark, that I'm going to know my way out. And you're showing us literally the light out of the darkness with this book. And
Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah.
remarkable gift to humanity. So thank you for what you've given us.
You're welcome. And I have my flaws and I have my off days. I mean,
What?
sometimes,
No, not you.
yes, I
Don't
do.
tell me
So
that.
look, look, look. Sometimes when I'm driving to the school here,
Yes.
I have to turn left on what's called Nichols Road. And I have in my mind, I know I'm going to meet these people and those people, and I'm going to treat them. I'm going to nurture their creativity. I'm going to show them loyalty because they've had some disloyalty in their lives. I'm going to do something for them that is really tailored. But then, as I'm having to stop at that yellow light,
I hear it already.
and
Hurry
and,
up.
and yeah, and this guy in front of me,
Cuts you off.
he had no reason to stop. I'm not too good at stopping at yellow lights. And if he stops the yellow light and I'm behind him, it's going to take 10 minutes out of my day. I don't scream, I don't yell curses, but I will fall sometimes full chested on the horn, on the wheel of the car. And
Oops.
and and just have to breathe. I mean, that's when you really have to breathe.
Yes, right. But you know what? I love that you've shared this because really, we all do this, right? When we're driving, we have the moments. But isn't that the best opportunity to practice, right?
It
It's
is.
these moments. Like we don't go for the hard ones. Don't go for the
No, no,
ones
no.
where somebody's just died or you've just lost your job or you've got a divorce. Don't go for the big ones. Start with the little things you can do in your life. Choose one of these practices. It's like what we say about a gratitude practice, right?
Mhm.
It's start that in the morning. That's the first thing. As soon as
Yeah,
my eyes are open, I just say, thank you for this day. Thank you for another day.
nice.
Because that I know I can do. I know I
Yeah,
can do at least a 5 minute meditation or longer before I get up, right? I know that I can go take my walk in nature pretty much every single night. Of course, there's always nights, there's the exception, but I can do that. So I choose those little things in my life. And when, yeah, somebody cuts me off, I can go, listen, a great example. I was just in a bad car accident. Somebody completely sideswiped me, took the
oh no.
whole side of my car out. I was fine, thank God. But I literally got out of the car, and as the guy came over and he saw my son was in the car, he felt terrible. And I said, don't worry. But before I got out of the car, I breathed. I took a big
Yeah,
breath in.
yes,
Sterling's going, oh my God, Mom. And I said, Sterl, paint and metal, buddy. It's paint and metal. It can all be fixed. The most important part is we're okay. He's okay. Let's just go out. We're going to shake his hand. And that's how I approached it. And
that's
what a
great.
difference between me going out and screaming at the guy for being an idiot for running dead smack onto me, right? Obviously, he had something going on in his world that he wasn't paying attention. We all have those moments. It could have been me. I could have hit somebody. And so I approached that. That's my saying. It's just paint and metal. No matter what happens,
I
whether it's
like
my
that.
car or it's something else, it's just paint and metal. I
Yeah,
can, right? So he cut me off or whatever it is. It's just paint and metal.
yeah.
So,
End of the day, I'm all for it. You know, you look back on the day, take 5 minutes at the end of the day,
yeah,
and just ask yourself. I mean, this is the wheel of love thing.
love it.
Did I exercise carefrontation effectively?
Yes. Check
Was
for the day.
I helpful to someone who was slowed up in their research projects and kind of stuck? Was I loyal to somebody who's just been betrayed by a loved one?
Mm.
Was I, and so I ask myself, have I been at least reasonably consistent with the wheel of love, these different expressions of love? And like I said, I don't use love here in this workplace. I'm in my office at the medical school right now. I don't walk around the hallways talking about love, love, love because people would, well, they wouldn't
No,
be
but it's
surprised.
how you show up,
It's
right?
how
Of
you
all is
show up.
it's how
It's
you
how you
show
show
up.
up.
You don't have to talk about love all the time. It's the
Yeah,
expressions of how you show up as love. And I think
yeah,
that
and
goes right back to what we said, right? We are love at the
absolutely.
core. So just
Yeah,
express that, be that expression. And I
be that.
love that you shared that because that was like it connected all the dots for me, right? Be the expression of love
Yeah,
for this world. What a world we would have if we all showed up as an expression of love throughout our day, every day, even if just once or twice, every single person did, right? We would
yeah.
literally have a different world than what we live in right now,
And then gathered together and debrief about the experience.
right? We can
How did
put it
that
all into
feel?
AI and AI can spit it back out to us, Stephen.
Oh,
It'll be
yeah,
so good.
that's right. That's right.
We just
Well,
got to
you
train it.
won.
We got to train
You
it.
yeah, you won on AI. Anyway, so but
Thank
absolutely.
you.
And I'm glad. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to your listeners because this book really is very deeply important to me. It's the one book that I feel I had to write.
Yeah, and I heard that in your voice that it just needed to come out of you and you
Yeah,
needed to share that with the world. And I'm so glad that you did because every
yeah,
word will benefit everyone that reads it. So you are going to see whether you're watching this from our website, you're watching this from YouTube, you're hearing it on Spotify, We're going to have the links to where you can pre-order the book. If you see this a little bit later, you'll be able to order the book. You'll be able to follow Stephen and his wisdom. Stephen, my friend, I feel so remarkably. I had a calling to reach out to you. It was over 15 years ago now on a cold call email about 365 Give. I'm so glad I followed my calling because I consider you such a beautiful friend in my life and mentor for me.
Mutual.
You've taught me so much. So
Yeah.
thank you. You've brought peace to my life, and that is a beautiful gift you can give to anyone. So please know that you've brought that to my world.
Well,
And I'm
thank you.
looking forward to everyone else. So please, if there is one thing that you can do today, 365 Give is a charitable organization. So if you want to do your one thing to be kind, your one way to give today, hit subscribe, give this a like, and share this with one person in your world that you know can benefit from this today. It is your way to give. It can be your expression of love. We appreciate you coming and spending this time with both of us in Stephen's office and in my home. We love having you with us, and we'll look forward to having you back on the Human Impact Theory next time. See you all
It's
soon.